Once upon a time, 3 little engines lived in their own little shed on their own little railway. Duke was brown, Falcon blue, and Stuart green. Duke was the oldest. He had been the first engine on the line, and named after the Duke of Sodor. He was proud of this, and wanted everything just so. Whenever the others did anything they shouldn't, he would say, "That would never suit his grace." Other engines came and went, but Duke outlasted them all. Stuart and Falcon used to call him Grandpa. Duke was fond of them and tried to keep them in order. They were fond of him too, as he was so wise and kind, but they did get tired of hearing about his grace. Sometimes they would wink at each other and chant solemnly, "Engines come, engines go, Grandpuff goes on forever." "You impertinent scallywags," Duke would say indignantly. "Whatever are young engines coming to nowadays?" "Oh, never mind, Grandpuff. We're only young once." "Well, you'd better mind, unless you want to end up like number 2. "Oh, Grandpuff, whatever happened?" "Number 2, said Duke, "was American and very cocky. He rode roughly and often came off the rails. I warned him to be careful." "Listen, bud," he drawled. "In the States, we don't care a dime for a few spills." "We do here," I said. But he just laughed. He didn't laugh when the manager took away his wheels and said he was going to make him useful at last.
Why? What did he do?
He turned him into a pumping engine, that's what. He's still there behind our shed. Stuart and Falcon were unusually good for several days. Stuart and Falcon became useful engines, and all 3 were happy together for many years. But hard times came. The mines closed one by one, and the engines had little to do. At last their line was closed, and people came to buy the engines. "We'll take Stuart and Falcon," they said. But no one wanted Duke. They thought him too old. "Cheer up, Grandpuff," called Stuart as they puffed away. "We'll find a nice railway, then you can come and keep us in order." They all laughed bravely, but not one of them thought it would ever come true. Duke's driver and fireman oiled and greased him. They sheeted him snugly and said goodbye. They had to go away and find work. Duke was alone, locked up in the shed. "Where is his grace?" he wondered. "It's not like him to forget me." "Oh well," Duke said to himself. "I'll go to sleep. It'll help to pass the time." Have you guessed about Stuart and Falcon? Yes, you're right. They came to the Thin Controller's Railway. He gave them new coats and new names. Stuart became Peter Sam, and Falcon, Sir Handel. They prefer their new names. That was a long time ago, but they never forgot Grandpuff, and often talked about him alone. They were excited to hear that the Duke was coming to Scarlo and Reneus' 100th birthday, but most disappointed with the Duke who actually came, for he was only a man. But we'll say no more. or we'll spoil the next story. Ever since Scarlo and Drenais had their 100th birthday, Peter Sam had been worried. He kept on saying that the real Duke never came.
Rubbish,
said Duncan.
Of course he was real.
All the same, Peter Sam persisted. He wasn't our Duke.
Our Duke,
said Sir Handel, was an engine.
Ah, you're as bad as he is. All engine Dukes were scrapped. Ask Duck.
Duck doesn't know everything, Scarloey put in quietly.
Tell us about him, you two.
Here is one of the stories that Peter Sam and Sir Handel told about Grandpuff. It happened when Sir Handel was new to the line. Now, have you remembered in those days that Sir Handel was called Falcon? You have.
Now we can begin.
The manager came to see him one day and said he was pleased with his work so far. Now, Falcon, he went on, you must learn the mountain road. Yes, please, sir, said Falcon, excited. So tomorrow, you shall go double-heading on it with Duke. He will explain everything. Falcon didn't like this. He thought Duke was a fusspot and a regular old fuddy-duddy. Duke's train was one for holidaymakers. He called it the picnic. Falcon was ready when Duke arrived. Duke drew forward beside him.
Listen,
he said.
The mountain road is difficult. You take the train, and I'll couple in front.
No, said Falcon. I'll lead. How can I learn the road with you lumbering ahead, blocking the view?
Suit yourself, said Duke shortly. But never mind the view. Attend to the track. Look at the track, he puffed again on starting. Never mind the view.
Fusspot, said Falcon on starting. Fuddy-duddy, fuddy-duddy, fuddy-duddy. They rattled through the first tunnel, looped round, recrossed the river, and entered the second, climbing all the time. Their speed grew slower and slower. Don't dawdle, urged Falcon.
No hurry, puffed Duke stolidly.
The tunnel was curved and pitch dark. Falcon felt stifled. He wanted to get out. Presently, the light grew. 2 ribbons of track peered ahead in the gloom.
Watch the track,
warned Duke. Fusspot, scoffed Falcon. The tunnel mouth grew larger and larger, till at last they burst into the sunshine. The line here swung sharply right. It was laid on the ledge, cut into the hillside. Below lay the valley from which they had come. No one quite knows what happened next. Duke said
there must have been something on the track, and Falcon hadn't kept a good lookout.
Falcon said he was dazzled, so how could he keep a good lookout? His front wheels derailed and crunched over sleepers and ballast. He came to rest with one wheel uncomfortably near the edge. Duke had saved Falcon. Now he held on grimly with locked wheels and taut couplings.
Young idiot,
he hissed.
Stop it! I can't hold you if you shake!
Falcon tried hard to stop shuddering. Quickly, Duke's driver and fireman chopped his wheels and strengthened the couplings between the 2 engines.
Thank you, said Duke. Now I'll manage.
With Duke secure, the 2 crews, helped by a plate layer, propped up Falcon's front end. They were looking forward to a rest when Duke began wheeshing in an alarming way. His fireman ran to his cab. "Water!" he cried. "We want water, quickly!" The platelayer's cottage stood nearby. He explained to his wife, and the passengers borrowed jugs, buckets, kettles, saucepans, anything, in fact, which would hold water. They formed a chain from the well to the engine and passed them from hand to hand. The fireman, meanwhile, reduced his fire and anxiously watched the gauge. It was hot and tiring work, for Duke needed many gallons. But at last the fireman shouted cheerfully, "We're winning! Don't weaken!" And they all set to work again with a will. They cheered again when the breakdown gang arrived. They showed other passengers how to help them lever Falcon back onto the rails. The manager was at the top station. He said he was sorry about the accident and thanked the passengers for their help. Not at all, they said. We admired the way you put things right and enjoyed the adventure. They thanked Duke and his crew for preventing a nasty accident. Your Duke, they said, is a hero. He stood firm like a bulldog and just wouldn't let go. Falcon said thank you too. I don't know why you've bothered after I'd been so rude. Oh well, replied Duke. You just had a new coat of paint. It would have been a pity if you rolled down the mountain and spoilt it. That would have never suited his grace. Duke's Picnic is a train for summer visitors. It was his special train. Many people came year after year just to see him. He always pulled it, even when he felt poorly. I mustn't disappoint my friends, he would say. That would never suit his grace. The morning run gave no trouble. He took his passengers up the line and stopped anywhere they wanted. He and his driver knew the best places for picnics. Beep, 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 he whistled as they waved goodbye. Please don't be late when I come back. We might miss the boat, and that would never do. One day, Duke felt poorly at the end of his first picnic journey. He had been short of steam and was glad for a rest before starting back. His driver and fireman had just finished cleaning his tubes when Stuart bustled in.
Hello, Grandpuff. Are you short of puff?
Nothing of the sort. A routine maintenance.
Tell you what, Grandpuff. You're getting old. You need to take care. We'll have to keep you in order before you break down.
Huh, said Duke. That'll be the day. You keep me in order. Ugh, impudence. He puffed away, whooshing crossly from his drain cocks. Duke couldn't stay cross for long. It was a lovely evening. All the picnic parties were ready. The coaches ran well, and they lost no time anywhere. Couldn't be better, couldn't be better, he chuntered happily. They began to climb. The work was harder, but Duke didn't mind. I've plenty of steam, he panted. We'll be up in a couple of puffs. He needed more than that, though. His puffs changed to wheezes. It's not so easy. It's not so easy. My old valves would start blowing now. Oh, but I'll manage. I'll manage. The leaks became worse. Duke's driver examined him carefully at the next station while the guard went to telephone. Anxious passengers gathered round. 2 engines are coming. With luck, we'll be away in 15 minutes. You'll easily catch your boat. Falcon buffered up in front. Poor old Grandpuff, he whooshed importantly. What a shame you've broken down. Beep, 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 beep. This is the day, whistled Stuart cheekily. He was coupled on behind. Beep, beep, beep. Are you ready? Whistled Falcon. Beep, beep, beep. Yes, I am, replied Stuart, and away they went. Falcon left his train at the middle station. Arrived there, and the cavalcade split up. Falcon went down to the port with Duke's Picnic, while Stuart headed Falcon's train with Duke coupled behind. Stuart was excited.
Fancy me rescuing Grandpuff. This is the day, this is the day, this is the day,
he chortled gleefully.
Poor Grandpuff, he thought. He's much too old. We'll have to keep him in order now. Kindly, but firmly, that's it. We'll allow him to have runs sometimes, but Falcon and I can do the real work. Grandpuff will be cross, but we can't help that. Poor old engine, he puffed kindly.
Duke was by no means crippled. His valves sounded worse than they were. He could have kept his train, but his driver said, "No, our passengers will only be worried." Duke agreed. He didn't want to spoil their day. He listened to Stuart chortling and smiled. He and his driver had their own joke ready. At first, they used just enough steam to keep moving, but the last half mile was uphill. "Now," said his driver. He advanced the regulator, and Duke responded with a will. He puffed and roared as if the whole train's weight was on his buffers. People heard the noise from far away. They ran to see what was happening. At the workstation, a boy on the platform asked,
Why were there 2 engines on this train, Daddy? It's most unusual.
"It is," said his father, "but today was different. Stuart broke down, you see, and they had to call Duke out to help him. Duke had a hard job too, by the sound of it."
Aw, fiddlesticks!
exclaimed Stuart. He vanished in a cloud of steam. Duke wheezed. "Oh, poor old engine," he chuckled. "It's no good, Stuart. You can't win." Duke's story soon spread. The engines told Mr. Hugh. Mr. Hugh told the thin controller told the owner told his Grace told the small controller told the thin clergyman, and the thin clergyman told the fat one. That's why one morning, the 2 clergymen and the small controller were looking at maps. "Our railway," said the small controller, "is laid along the bed of the old one, but swings round to end at the road south of that village. The old line kept straight on. It went north to the village and then to the mountains. The maps show the works at the old station. If Duke is anywhere, he's there." "Are you writing another book, sir?" "Yes," said the thin clergyman, "but not about you." He smiled at their downcast faces. "Cheer up," he went on. "It is about a nice old engine who is lost. But if you're good, the artist might put you in the pictures." "Oh, thank you, sir." So the clergyman told them about Duke, and Falcon, and Stuart. "So you see," he continued, "poor Duke was left alone." The 3 small engines sighed sympathetically. "And we want to find him, and mend him, and make him happy again. Your controller wants to help, but he can't if you're naughty." The 3 small engines promised to be as good as gold. The 3 men spent days and days at the old station. They came up every day on Bert's train. He always whistled good luck as they walked up the track, and had nothing in the evening except for scratches and torn clothes. They wouldn't give up, though. "Duke's there somewhere," they said. The fat clergyman found him in the end, scrambling over a hillock. He trod on something that wasn't there, crashed through a hole, and landed legs astride on Duke's saddle tank. "Our sleeping beauty himself," he shouted. The thin clergyman and the small controller peeped through the hole above. "Excuse me," inquired Duke, "but are you a vandal? Driver told me vandals break in and smash things." The fat clergyman ruefully felt his bruises. "Bless you, no," he laughed. "I'm quite respectable. I dropped in because I couldn't find your door." And he told him about Falcon and Stuart. "So they did remember," said Duke softly. "Then does his Grace approve?" "Yes, he's coming." "To see me? Oh, how kind. But I'm all dirty and that will never do. Please clean me." So they set to work. And by the time the small controller had fetched his Grace, Duke was the cleanest of anyone in the shed. Early next morning, Mike brought workmen and tools. They enlarged the fat clergyman's hole, lifted Duke out, and put him on a low loader to take him away by road.
I'd be ashamed, Duke protested, to travel by road. It's undignified.
I'm sorry, Duke, said His Grace, but the small railway has no suitable tracks. Duke gave in then, but so many people came out and greeted him, he felt better. Donald was waiting with the flat truck. Everyone cheered when Duke was lifted onto it, and still more when he started on the big railway on the last stage of his journey to his new home. Peter Salmon's Handle were on early turn.
He's there, they whispered. Shh.
Duke opened his eyes.
You woke me, he grumbled. In my young days, engines were...
Seen and not heard, Grandpuff. Remember?
I remember, said Duke. Two idle good-for-nothings called Falcon and Stuart.
Good for you, Grandpuff. We're glad you've come. We can keep you in order now.
Keep me in order! Oh, impertinence! Be off!
The pair chuffed away, well content.
Impudent scallywags, murmured Duke.
Just then, a workman walked toward him. Some enthusiasts wish to see you, Duke, he told him. Duke grinned. When shall I see them? In about 15 minutes, replied the workman. You can take a train as soon as Peter Sam has left with the goods. As the workman walked away, Duke said to himself, I'll shut my eyes. It'll help pass the time. His old eyes twinkled, and for the first time in years, he smiled as he dozed in the sun.